Hello, I am live. Wow, this is a first for me. Finally getting set up properly here. Just to do this a little bit more properly. There we go. 2007 was such a tumultuous year, to say the very least. I I'm gonna check things out here on. Um, I'm just synchronizing some of my other stuff here, and I'll start talking in a minute. There we go. Just learning the ropes here, guys. But just a couple of observations last night. Perusing Twitter and YouTube, it became very obvious that there's a lot of people, a lot of creators are sort of putting their best foot forward. I can't be the only one who very clearly has seen a lot of creators who have come under a lot of fire. Sorry about that. A lot of creators have come under fire lately from um, just from Comicsgate and everything else. How they've sort of been they're changing the way they're going to do things in 2018. They're going to forgive. There was at least 5 or 6 creators who blocked me, who decided to unblock a whole slew of their fans. Putting their best foot forward for 2018, which I find to be quite hilarious, because if it's one thing that Comicsgate taught anyone in 2017 is that it just doesn't pay to battle the public, because when you have a massive fan base that loves the way things were, when you try to rock the boat a little bit, it's going to cause wrinkles. Uh, one of my observations is I find it interesting talking when you think about the Last Jedi criticisms. To me, there's a direct correlation between the Last Jedi criticisms and the problems of Comicsgate, because it seems like Disney with Star Wars is doing what Marvel's tried to do with their comic books in 2017. That is to say, diversify. And diversification is great, but when you do that at the expense of your existing popular characters, you can get a backlash. And Marvel Comics clearly got a backlash, and it's very. It was very sad to see what happened with Marvel in 2017. And I think what made Marvel's situation worse is that I really think that Marvel, particularly Axel Alonso and Trevor Brevoort and all those in the upper editorial offices there, I think they really thought that they were on the side of angels. I think that they were riding this anti-Trump sort of wave, and they sort of assumed that the reason why they were getting so much criticism was because it was a bunch of Trump supporters that were criticizing them as well, when in actual fact that just wasn't the case. Uh, Sorry about that. I'm just trying to. And but Marvel going into 2018 is really on a high note. They're on a higher note. They're starting off on well, they're still low, but they're going in on a higher note. Look what Marvel's got going right now into 2018. Um, they've got Iron Fist, which is going to be flying high. They've got more coming up in the Avengers. They've got Doctor Strange. Donny Cates is on fire right now. Rumor has it that he might even be one of the next writers on the Avengers, or actually Jason Aaron and is going to be writing the Avengers. But Donny Cates, rumor has it he might be placed on Iron Man. And then you got Kelly Thompson, who was on Hawkeye. She's really good at dialogue. She's probably going to be writing Jessica Jones. These are fairly. Uh, they're going to be. They're doing what they need to do. Miles Morales is no longer. It seems he's given up being Spider-Man, so they obviously got some future plans for him. With Bendis leaving Marvel, going to DC, very clearly, Bendis has said he's leaving all his characters in good hands. But you just you got to wonder if that's actually the case. but so far so good. I mean, Marvel's gotten some decent publicity off simply by taking a step back, relaxing, focusing on good stories, on better stories, and not huge events. They're coming a long way. Um, DC, DC in 2018 is going to continue to fly high. Here's here's what's interesting about DC. In my view, this is what we should watch out for DC Comics in 2018, and that is uh, what Dan Didio is doing with that sort of the Dark Universe line that's coming out on all those titles that are coming out that are building that have characters built on the Dark Universe, which is what the DC metal, Dark Knight's metal is all about. And all those characters that DC has been talking about and advertising in their comic books, uh, which are being, you know, they got a whole slew of different creative team. In particular, they've come up with the Terrifics, which has Mr. Terrific, Plastic Man, Metamorpho, and I think Phantom Girl, I believe. And those four, it's sort of like the DC's version of Fantastic Four. So it's very interesting that DC, just when Marvel's finally bringing out Fantastic Four, DC is creating their own Fantastic Four in hopes of competing with it. It's going to be very interesting to see how that turns out. Um, I think it's questionable whether or not DC is going to. Uh, Dan Didio's experiment was the New 52, and it didn't work out too well. I in reviewing what DC has coming out in 2018, I don't think that it's going to be particularly. I don't think it's necessarily going to be as particularly as great as he had hoped. I know one of the things that they had really been focusing on, and if I could find it here, some of the characters. It's the problem with DC Metal. I'm looking at all these a slew of DC Metal advertisements here. They're coming out with the Immortal Men, Children of the Realm, the Immortal Men. They're coming out with that. Now that's Jim Lee and James Tinian are on that. Now that looks to be pretty good. It was supposed to come out in December. I don't recall that coming out. If anyone's ever read Immortal Men, if that's any good. Um, and I don't know when the Terrifics are coming out, but it's this new line coming out of DC. That's something that's gonna to watch out for. Now, the other the other thing that sort of throws me off about 2018, what to expect, is what's going to happen with the continued independent line, because DC's really, Marvel has a lot of goodwill that they've got to win back from the public, and I think they're on the path of doing that. I really think that their Iron Fist is something to look out. Iron Fist, Doctor Strange, and Thor. Expect big things with that. Jason Aaron, he's really going to be taken off with Avengers. That Death of Thor storyline is really going to be hitting its strides. You got to wonder, as bad as Legacy was, that one-shot Legacy that Marvel had, that storyline that they started in there with the Infinity Gems, or they're calling them Infinity Stones now, whatever they're calling them. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes. That might even be a payoff. But right now, we've all been sort of trained not to expect any payoffs from Marvel because of the disaster of, or the PR disaster of Secret Empire. I say again, Secret Empire wasn't as bad a story as some make it out to be, but it just became so bloated. Speaking of Secret Empire, it's Nick Spencer. Looks like Nick Spencer is probably going to be getting his day in the sun. He is going to be writing Spider-Man by the sounds of things. Dan Slott, as we know, is off Spider-Man. So he's finishing up the Spider-Man storyline with that Venom storyline that's currently out. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays itself out. Chip Zdarsky of Spectacular Spider-Man. It's a very comical tale. They're really focusing on Spectacular Spider-Man seems to focus on it. They almost write Spider-Man like he's very young, like he's almost like an immature teenager, it seems, which is, I guess, typical. But it's like Marvel always has a sort of a schizophrenic relationship with Peter Parker. They want to try to portray him as every age group all the time, and they're always jumping back and forth. You got to wonder, are they going to bring the marriage back? If there's one thing that DC has really capitalized on, and you really see this in DC, you see this so much, is how they have capitalized on focusing on conservative values. And you just can't escape that. And I'm not even talking. I don't mean to bring politics into this. I'm not talking politics. I'm just talking about good old fashioned family values are in DC comic books. And you see that with Superman and Lois married now together. They have a child. Batman and Catwoman together. They've got Damian Wayne, and you really see Aquaman and Mira together. These are couples. These now in the DC universe, to be a superhero, you could all it's there is a connection between, and a symbolic link between what it takes to be a superhero is you almost have to be a super couple. If you are as strong as who you surround yourself with, and relationships are very important. This is very, very different because I got to tell you, I remember going back in the New 52. Dan Didio gave that statement where he said that it was an editorial mandate in the Batman family, at least, that Batman not have it, that be no relationships in the DC universe, at least no successful relationships. Certainly for Batman, that Batman is meant to be a loner. It goes against his image if he has a relationship. It's really interesting to see what's happening now with the DC universe, where you see this extraordinary focus on relationships, and it's just it's really working for DC, especially now with the Batman Annual, which #2, which was arguably the best comic book of 2017 on many people's top 10 lists. Is Marvel going to be? Are we going to be seeing more relationships, more long-term relationships at Marvel? Are we going to be seeing Spider-Man and Peter Parker and Mary Jane get back together? It's one of those things it makes you wonder. Nightwolf, how's it going, man? I'm doing fine. I'm just experimenting with my first live feed. Yeah. Happy New Year, Spike. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm just here bullshitting. I'm actually experimenting a little bit on a news feed. I got different hookups here, and I'm just sort of shooting the shit. I don't even know. It's great that feel free to comment, I guess. I'm just shooting the shit. I might show some of my comics. At some point, I'm going to be doing a live stream for my Jonah Hex collection, and I might even dress up like Jonah Hex. I haven't actually I do have my Jonah Hex Confederate cowboy hat. Now here's an interesting story. I've dressed up. I dressed up like Jonah Hex for probably about 3 Comic Cons already. Now Jonah Hex. Interesting history about Jonah Hex is Jonah Hex is a Confederate soldier, and so because he's a Confederate soldier, it's always interesting that he's never really, you would think he'd be a very controversial figure. You'd think that some people might be offended by Jonah Hex because of what his costume is. Now, Jonah Hex, he doesn't wear a Confederate that gray outfit or that uniform. He didn't support the Confederacy because he supported slavery. When you get into the Jonah Hex history, he always wore the Confederacy more as a reminder to himself of where he came from, and sort of a twisted relationship with how he remembered his past. And he was basically a good guy, but it was odd that he always wore that Confederate outfit. And so when I'm putting together this outfit, I was at the Calgary Comic Con one time, and I'm wearing this outfit. And when I wear my Jonah Hex thing, I don't wear my scar, because I have scar makeup, but when I put scar makeup on the Jonah Hex outfit, I look pretty cool just with the outfit. Not to brag, but I'm all decked out. And in Canada here, it's very hard to get a gun. It's very hard to get. We have the gun laws here in Canada are such that it's very hard to get a look-alike gun. I tried ordering a Jonah Hex actual gun, or a look-alike gun, but I couldn't get it. They wouldn't let it over the border. And the one time, the fake gun that I made, even with the orange tip on it, it was confiscated by security at the Comic-Con. They wouldn't allow it in. They wouldn't even give me a permit for it. It's such a pain in the ass. So sometimes I have a stupid little look-like blow-up gun. But when I'm Indiana Jones, they actually let me dress up. They actually let me take my whip now. They changed their weapons policy. If you ever want to be Indiana Jones, you can now bring your whips, because a bunch of us Indiana Jones fans got together along with all the Catwoman fans, and we bitched and we complained and said, we want to bring our whips into the Comic-Con. Quit taking away our whips. So it's pretty good. You want to meet women with whips, just like Indiana Jones. You'll meet a lot of women with whips. But anyways, uh, uh, yes, a whip is more effective than a toy gun, especially to uh, yeah, you can make it a little bit loose, but you'll always end up, if you dress up like Indiana Jones, I guarantee you'll have at least 3 or 4 women dressed like Catwoman come up and compare their whips to you. Or it's a good opening line. You can walk up to them and say to them, I can't help but notice the size of your whip. I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Anyways, this stuff. I should say this, that they always talk about when you go to a Comic-Con, age of consent. Uh, you meant as a weapon. Yeah, no, I see. Fair enough. Yeah, well, it's a weapon in social culture. It's a weapon to pick up women. But women also pick up men with it. I mean, let's be honest. But yeah, no, wow. There's one other thing to say when you go, if you ever go to a Comic-Con and you're decked out, make sure if you got any kind of costume, make sure you look at the weapons policy first, because it's absolutely ridiculous. It's they can sell, it's like they can sell guns at a Comic-Con, or they can sell fake guns or sell fake swords at a Comic-Con, but you can't actually bring one in half the time. It's a real pain in the ass and all the stuff you got to go through. But anyways, well, the other thing, I don't know if I'm allowed to promote Crown Royal, but this is what Jonah Hex drinks when he's on some downtime. It's good stuff. I actually I got myself a nice little whiskey glass for Christmas. You drop the I don't know if you guys know this, but when you can buy a special whiskey glass that's got a little oval thing in the middle, and you can buy ice balls that perfectly fit in the glass, and they flip around the glass. So when you put a little whiskey in there, and you put on the cowboy hat, the ice ball spins around the glass with the whiskey, and then it enhances the smell, and you can just it makes good. It's a good sipping thing. It's great. But, just one other thing for 2018, I'm gonna probably at some point do a Batman review of Metal. I haven't done a Metal review yet. I have, and I'm also doing a Casa Nostra review. Spike has got me to this fantastic site. I'm gonna probably put the link to that comic site down. The Casa Nostra. It's an online comic, and it's one full graphic novel. The entire thing's free online. It's just incredible. It's a great story that takes place in the 1920s, and it deals with all sort of like the icons of the 1920s, from Al Capone, and it name drops all John Dillinger. It names drop all these big gangster characters that we know from our history. And the main story deals with this sort of like this house of ill repute, so to speak, or this lady of the night, where she sort of hosts. She's sort of like a. It's sold through Diamond. Yes, thank you, Spike. It is sold through Diamond, Casa Nostra. It's so check out Diamond. Pick up the graphic novel. It's really good. I won't spoil anything, because I know Spike's given me shit before because I spoil things, and I don't give spoiler warnings, as you should. Suffice to say, if you like the gangster sort of era, the 1920s, with a really good story, I mean, imagine this madame, this woman who runs basically well, she runs this house where of ladies of the night who cater to the rich and famous, and cater to mobsters, and they get embroiled in something that they didn't want to get embroiled with. In particular, they end up having to care for a very, very psychotic individual, and this particular psychotic individual causes them a great deal of harm, and they want to get revenge, but they're not allowed to, because their place is to basically be ladies of the night, be prostitutes, be high priced, and they're supposed to toe the line. And how they get around that is kind of like the whole story. It's kind of a revenge story. it's a revenge story, but it's a lot more exciting than that because the art's amazing, the ambiance, the characterizations are spot on. It's the only reason I stopped reading it the first time I read through it was simply because it was 1:30 in the morning and I had to stop, but I finished reading it after that. But in any event, I will do a review on Casa Nostra. I'm hoping to do that in the next week or so, and that way I'll have some images up and I'll show some of the beautiful artwork and and you'll get some sense of the feel of the story. So a number of observations here. I've when I actually read again all of Metal, and just I have to give compliments to DC just how absolutely beautiful every single one of these comic books are. I mean, these are absolutely the whole epic storyline. It's surprising to me how many people did not pick this up. Metal is selling like hotcakes. I mean, people are buying it like crazy. My comic shop's sold out. Other comic shops I go to, they're completely sold out. I could unload this entire series on eBay. I don't do that. I don't sell my stuff on eBay. I buy stuff off eBay occasionally, but for the most part, I generally don't. I generally don't do that. Just one other comment Spike made that they've made the special covers available to the public at large. I did not know that. I did not know. Apparently, Casa Nostra, they've made special covers available to the public at large. So that's another reason to check out Casa Nostra. Casa Nostra. I'm probably saying that wrong. Casa Nostra, isn't that that's sort of like the gangster code, isn't it? The Casa Nostra, or is that does this have something to do with Dracula? No, I'll have to Google that at some point. Anyways, Spike, maybe you can tell me what the name actually references. What's the historical significance of the name Casa Nostra? Because it's eluding me right now. But anyways, great story. Just one other thing I want to grab here. I picked this up. I got this as a present. This is amazing. Look at all the blondes in this photograph. This is a beautiful poster I got. This is I got this as a gift. I don't know who the artist is, but it's signed. It's actually Amaron Tammy or Andrea Tam. But all the blonde hair entwined, and you got Batgirl, Power Girl, the old Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel there, and Valkyrie. This is great. I'm sure I'm not the only one who noticed here. Just the power of breasts on comic books. The power of breasts on comic books are just an amazing thing. Now, one of the things that Marvel found out in 2017 is that when you remove the breasts from most of your characters and you try to make them look what they view as more realistic, that's all well and good. But every now and then, you want to sell. You got to remember that you're still dealing with the marketplace, and there's still 400 comic books that come out a month. And if I'm looking for a new comic, and if I have a choice between reading a great story with characters I find attractive versus a great story with characters I find unattractive, I'm gonna go with the attractive characters. I just am. Look, just because a character is attractive doesn't mean that just because I might be unattractive doesn't mean I can't relate to the story if it's got a good story to tell, right? And I find it very interesting. As a matter of fact, the latest issue of Wonder Woman 37, the art in there is really good. And what particularly stood out, there's one scene, and I say this, I say this because one of the things that really stands out in Wonder Woman is she's got a fairly her breasts. I mean, she's drawn like a very attractive woman here when she's trying to battle Darkseid and help Zeus out in this issue, and she's got a fairly significant. I mean, look at that. I mean, now, now I say that because I know I'm sounding like a prurient fanboy here, but just bear with me. Because when you take that and you take the current issue of Captain Marvel, where she's in this dark universe, and you know she's very much flat chested. She doesn't have as much femininity, and I'm sorry. You can call me a Chad, you can call me whatever, but attractiveness matters when you're trying to bring people into your comic book world, and you're trying to create a narrative. Marvel, you really got to pick that up a little bit. Although I will say, Marvel is getting a little bit better, I think, in some of their Avengers. I'm starting to see a slow growth of breast size in Marvel comic books in the last month or so. So I think they're starting to get the hint. So that's good news. That's good news. Um, yeah. Okay. Right. Spike says that it's not like there are not attractive women with small breasts like Kitty Pryde and such. The problem, Spike says, the problem is that they look like me now. Well, I don't, I don't know if they look quite like you, Spike. I'm not saying you look bad. I'm just saying they don't look like you. That's all. Yeah, you're right. Obviously, women can look attractive with small breasts. I think the key is, remember the hourglass figure, because I think that's one of the things that's been lost. And maybe in fairness to Marvel, I should say that Marvel has been such that it might just be Marvel didn't have the pick of the creme de la creme of the artists in 2017. They lost a lot of that, and DC has overall in the last year has had better artists, and that matters too, because when the artists aren't up to task, you know that clearly suffers as well, and any weaknesses that they have. And it's really unfortunate for Marvel that they really and they really seem everything. Boy, it was a bad year for Marvel, wasn't it? God damn, it was a bad year for Marvel. Everything that could possibly go wrong for them did go wrong for them, and wow. But have they ever? You look at the review of November, how they've really cleared the Marvel has the number of titles that Marvel has put out. I mean, I think they dropped 30. They're down 30 titles, and at one time they were at their height in 2017. I think Marvel was at 120 issues a month, comics a month. They're now down to I think 80. That's incredible, incredible. I don't know what CB's got planned there. CB, I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to call him CB, the new editor in chief at Marvel. But it's going to be very interesting to see what he's got planned. Very, very interesting. And wow. And big question: when is Marvel's next big event going to be? Is he going to keep Axel Alonso's promise and not have a big event for 18 months? Because 18 months goes by real quick. We'll have to wait and see. uh, Nova Sama 420. I didn't realize your Captain. You have a Captain Marvel symbol. You must. Well, you're probably someone I should ask because you probably know more about Captain Marvel than I do. Not that I know a lot. No, you say no need for an hourglass. An inverted Y is nice too. Yep, all their good artists are gone. Ribic, Rockefeller. Yeah, that's it's happening. And it seems like I think Ribic's going to be on the new Avengers with Jason Aaron. That's coming out in April, I believe. And Rockefeller is with DC now. I think he's going to be putting out the Damage. I think he's on the series called Damage, or he's on one of the Dark Universe lines that are coming out in April. He's there as well. Yeah, CB's got very much a hard task ahead, and it doesn't help that I wonder with CB, how is CB going to, because he's, you got Heather Antos, and you've got a lot of the editorial staff, which were Heather Antos is one of the more successful editors, or dare I say, one of the better editors at Marvel. I think we can generally agree on that. But she was also, unfortunately, one of the most outspoken. I find it interesting that he hasn't gotten rid of the entire editorial staff, but you got to wonder if he's going to do that. They're all saying the right things online, and and I said this before. I don't know if I said it at the beginning, but was it funny on Twitter? There was at least like I said before, there was 5 or 6 creators that unblocked me last night as a way of creating good spirit into 2018. They all basically said the same thing, that they've unblocked all the people with the exception of two or three, which I imagine maybe diversity in comics might be one of them. I don't know. But a lot of them said they're unblocking all the people that they had blocked in 2017 as a way to put their best foot forward. And well, that's good to hear, good to see, and we'll see how that goes. And so that's a good sign. It was a cathartic. 2017 was cathartic. It was like, wow. It was like when the clock struck midnight. It's like doomsday clock. It's like boom. Now that we've hit midnight, we've had our explosions and our anger and our vitriol. That was 2017. Can we dispense with that for 2018? I think hopefully we can. And we're starting off the right place with CB. Yeah, Spike mentioned something interesting that I want to comment on too. He says Spike says, I think that CV should have fired Tom Brevoort on the spot after antagonizing Jim Starlin. I think that that's a very good point. Now, but let's talk about why he maybe didn't. Now, he didn't fire Jim Starlin because apparently Jim Starlin had this great idea for Thanos. Now, Jim Starlin is basically, he's the god of, like, he's all the best Thanos stories have been written by Jim Starlin. At least I haven't read all of them, but that's pretty much what I've been told, and I've read some of them, but not all of them. And so he's like the god of anything writing Thanos. Donny Cates is an up and rising star, and he's flying high on God Country. He's flying high on Doctor Strange. He's flying high on Thanos. And he's basically, the story idea that Donny Cates had was the same as Jim Starlin, but Jim Starlin had it first, and that's when the editors got to get in. At least that's my understanding. The editors got to come in and say, hey, this plot line has been dealt with here. You got to do something different. Well, I think obviously what happened is that they gave because Donny Cates is the star on the rise, and right now Marvel Comics doesn't have very many stars on the rise. Well, if they do, they're very, very low right now. I mean, you could maybe argue that Kelly Thompson is a star on the rise, but she's, that's questionable. I don't mind Kelly Thompson; she's not bad at dialogue, but it's questionable that she's necessarily a big name right now. Everybody's talking Donny Cates. Jim Starlin's already a star; he's already established. Donny Cates isn't, and they want to build Donny Cates up. And if Donny Cates wants to explore a storyline in Thanos, they clearly decided to leave it with Donny Cates. Why wouldn't Tom Brevoort say to Donny Cates, look, we put you on a big title, because they just put Donny Cates. Donny Cates tweeted last night that he just finished his script. Last night, Donny Cates finished his script. He tweeted for his next big Marvel #1, and it's his dream come true. He didn't say what it was. I'm not sure what it was, but it's his dream come true. Donny Cates said that. So very clearly, Marvel's already treating Donny Cates. They've just given him his dream project, according to what Donny Cates tweeted last night, or a couple nights ago. Is it really that important that they give Donny Cates that particular storyline in Thanos? I don't know. I don't know if it is. Spike says Kelly Thompson's the reason I'm not buying Rogue and Gambit this week, and Gambit is my all-time favorite character. That's it's interesting. If we were this more of a if this was a hangout, I'd let Spike comment. Kelly Thompson. My criticism of Kelly Thompson is she's good at satirical and sarcastic dialogue. She can write a scene that's actually, I find, humorous and funny. But where she falls short is that I don't find her that good yet at drawing a plot around the dialogue. She's good at dialogue. She's good at those quick quips between characters. But I've actually got every issue of Hawkeye. Of her, so far I got her entire Hawkeye run. I've read every issue. I think where she really comes up short is on her plotting. It's not particularly good. Well, I shouldn't say it's not particularly good. I actually enjoyed her Captain Phasma. I collected her Captain Phasma Star Wars run. She actually did a pretty good job on that, because I wondered how could you fit Captain Phasma what kind of, how can you make a Captain Phasma story interesting? And it was actually really good, and it was actually quite inspired. She told the story of Captain Phasma at the end of Force Awakens, where Captain Phasma was dumped in the garbage disposal by Finn. She told the story of how Captain Phasma escaped from there, and because you would remember that the only reason the base was destroyed was because Captain Phasma was the one that shut it down. So that would be very humiliating for Captain Phasma to have that discovered by the Empire High Command. Captain Kelly Thompson wrote a story that described how she managed to put the blame on somebody else for what was ultimately her screw up by being captured by Finn and Han Solo. And it was actually a pretty good story by Kelly Thompson. It was one of the few. Not that I expect you to pick that up, Spike, but it's not bad. So I think she has her moments, but be interesting to hear at some point you elaborate more on why you don't like her. What is she writing at the moment at Marvel? Kelly Thompson at the moment. Rumor has it that at the moment she's writing Hawkeye, but Hawkeye's going to end in issue, I believe, 19, and that's another 2 or 3 issues of real time before she stops. Kelly Thompson, rumor has it she's going to be writing Jessica Jones. That's a bleeding cool rumor, so take that with a grain of salt. She also has hinted on Twitter that she does have other assignments. I know she wrote. She also wrote Gem. What's that? The IDW series Gem, I think it's called. Anyways, but for Marvel, I'm fairly certain she's going to be writing something along the lines of Jessica Jones or some other type of series similar to that, where she focuses on dialogue. And I actually think Jessica Jones is a good fit for Kelly Thompson for one reason. If Jessica Jones was never a high selling title to begin with, even under Bendis, Jessica Jones it was probably one of Bendis's frankly lower selling titles overall. It's a dialogue heavy comic book series, Jessica Jones. And if you're really good at the talking heads like Bendis is, you can make that to be a cult hit like Bendis did. So this is Kelly Thompson's. I think Jessica Jones is playing to Kelly Thompson's strengths, if she can come up with a compelling plot that she can wrap her good use of dialogue around. That's just my opinion. Gem and the Holograms. Thank you, Spike. Full disclosure here, I collect a lot of comic books on a month. I actually have, if you can believe this, I think I have every issue of Gem and the Holograms. Now, I've not read about 50% of them. I had this thing, my daughter Audrey was born in December of 2014. She just turned 3 this past month. And I had this thing where I started to collect many series that I thought at some point when she gets older and she can read, that I wanted to have these back issues. So I got back issues of Gem and the Holograms. I got lots of Betty and Veronica, Archie, which ironically enough are getting more adult oriented all the time and might be inappropriate for my daughter when she gets old enough to read them. But anyways, that's what I'm doing. I got a lot of animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I got Teen Titans Go. And you know what the funny thing is, I find it crazy that very few people actually collect Teen Titans Go, or even the DC animated stuff for kids, or even the Marvel stuff for kids. And you know what? That stuff actually goes up in value fairly quickly, faster than I find the traditional comic books, which is very interesting. Try to find a full run of Teen Titans Go. Try to find a full run of comic books of Teen Titans Go to your local comic shop. Go ahead and try it. It's actually tough. They don't have a lot because the production run, the print run isn't very much. On average, maybe they put 5,000 to 8,000. I think at its height, Teen Titans Go is at 12,000 comics a month. I tell you, if that series ever takes off, or if there's ever a character in Teen Titans Go that makes it to the mainstream DC Universe line, a lot like Harley Quinn did when with the original Batman animated series number 12, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys can ever see what's in the back here. I actually picked up, I do have the first appearance of Harley Quinn here. I find this comical. This is one of my great comic book stories. I did pick this up. I did pick this up in a dollar bin. I did pick this up in a dollar bin. Because I already have one. This is my second copy. I actually bought this series as it was coming out. I thought the best issue was in #1, which starred the Penguin. But in any event, yeah, so it's nice to have these little things once in a while. And this sucker keeps going up in price. I should probably CGC this. I think this is probably about an 8.5 by my estimation. So I don't know. I don't know what this is going for now. Like $1,000 maybe? I don't know. In any event, sorry, Spike says the thing with Jessica Jones is she was made for the Max imprint, so it didn't have to sell as high as a 616 book back in the day. That is true. That is true. And well, yeah. In fact, if I recall correctly, I think it was the first few pages of the very first issue of. Well, it was Alias, right? It started off as Alias in the Max imprint, and it basically dealt with well, a provocative sexual situation in the first few pages, which really made it very clear that it was part of the Max imprint. Interesting. You got to wonder what they're going to do with Jessica Jones. Now, if that rumor is true and Kelly Thompson is writing it, it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to try to make Jessica Jones more mainstream to try to maybe attract some of the Netflix viewers, or if they're going to double down and leave it in the sort of the because I think the artist is staying on. I think the same artist that Spike, maybe you can help me out. I actually have the series here. Is it Michael Lark? Is Michael Lark the artist on Jessica Jones? But I got my there we go. There. Sorry about that. I actually have the couple of things here. I have, when I think about, man, Jessica Jones. There it is. Michael Gaydos. That's who it is. Michael Gaydos. Great artist. The Purple Man series, I mean, the latest issue, by the way, with the Purple Man, he's one sick little puppy, to say the very least. But I'm not sure where Bendis is going with this, but just a couple of comments. I'll just look. Sorry about this. David Mack, right? Thank you, Spike. David Mack was the original artist. And now the latest artist, David Mack, was the original artist on Alias that starred Jessica Jones. The current artist is Michael Gaydos, and Matt Hollingsworth is the color artist. Yeah, Noah Sama says that he didn't follow the original Jessica Jones for very long because of the show, but the books didn't keep him hooked, but he thinks the new Max lineup would be great. Yeah, I agree, for sure. Yeah, you say, I wish the inside was like the covers. Yeah, these covers are really good. You gotta wonder, art like this, that's on a cover like this, it might take a long time. I mean, I think that this would be, with Bendis writing this, anything Bendis writes generally is delayed to begin with, and if they had to wait for the artist, because I think art like this would take a while to wait for. But yeah, I agree. But just one quick comment. Just a quick comment about Marvel. I want to give Marvel some compliments here. The first one is, I really think that they, with their new with their covers, with their putting their heads there and the top line on top stating the name of the story arc and that style. I think that was a inspired idea. While it wasn't, it was stolen by, well, not that anyone can't come up with these ideas, but doing what DC did with Rebirth, doing it that way makes a lot of sense. I really like what they're doing. Spike says David Mack is a buddy of his that is making most of his money now with the movies and TV shows. He made the sequences for The Winter Soldier and Jessica Jones. Wow, that's impressive. when you say made the sequences, you mean sequences for the oh yeah. Oh, the intro, yeah, Nova Soldier, the intro for the movies, the intros for Winter Soldier and Jessica Jones, that's impressive. That's impressive, and yeah, well earned, well earned. And Winter Soldiers is one of my, I think Winter Soldier ranks up there. That's probably my favorite Marvel Universe movie still to this day. Um, uh, Although that might change with I haven't seen Thor Ragnarok, so maybe that will change if I see Thor Ragnarok. I heard that was pretty good, but I haven't seen so far. Winter Soldier is my favorite, and who knows? And Infinity War looks insane, so I have a feeling Infinity War might go to my number one if it's as good as the preview teases. But a couple other things here. USA Avengers is being canceled. I mean, wow, the slew of cancellations here is insane. You know what the irony is for me as a collector? I've always been a DC guy. I know I talk a lot of Marvel. Uh, You'd never know that I was a DC guy of going on 40 years. DC comic books is predominantly what I've always collected. But I got to say that when I started my YouTube videos, about whatever it was, 8 months ago or so, success. I don't know what I can't remember now. Anyways, I actually got into Marvel, ironically enough, because of Secret Empire, and I think that's so funny because everybody shits on Secret Empire and hates it, but it was the one thing that actually caught my attention because I I remember reading the end of Civil War too, and I remember thinking to myself, uh, that was I remember thinking to myself, this Captain Marvel, what a bitch. I remember thinking that. And that, but I, she had that short hair and, kind of like, there was something, Captain Marvel, that was intriguing. She was drawn beautifully by David Marquez in Civil War 2. So she was a very attractive character, I thought. And ironically enough, she became less feminine in the months following that to present, but very intriguing. And then I got into Secret Empire, and then I started to see the links, and I was really into it. And the irony is, it's just funny that just when everyone's starting to show a disinterest in Marvel, I actually started to show an interest in their big events. So I was kind of the opposite. Then I got into Secret Empire, and then I thought it got too bloated, but I really got into it, and you guys know that from those of you, if you're watching this, you've seen my videos, but I just find that kind of ironic that I'm always been a little bit of an outlier that way. I always come in, just when something's going out, I seem to be going in, so whatever. All right, Nova Sama says Thor Ragnarok made me angry. I'm not sure why that. I'm not sure why that would be the case. Thor. Yeah. Well, why did it? Why did it make you angry? I don't. You don't have to worry about spoiling it for me. But Marvel often bites off more than it can chew. But to their credit, they're handling their movies just epically well. Epically well. Just a quick comment. I want to make a quick comment on this idea of legacy. I find it ironic that Disney with Star Wars, is abandoning their legacy by wanting to go out and create a new diversified Jedi and Sith at the end of Last Jedi. That's clearly what they're doing with Last Jedi. They shit on their legacy and they're building new characters. In other words, they're not using their old popular characters to prop up or build their new characters. They shit on their old characters, Luke Skywalker, and are letting their completely new characters shine. That's what they're doing. And isn't that exactly what Marvel did with their comics in 2017? Marvel Comics in 2017 shit on their classic characters, ignored them, propped up the new ones. And Marvel paid a price for that. And so it's interesting that Disney, with the Star Wars things, did the same damn thing. They sort of like shit on their classic characters of Star Wars, of the classic trilogy, while propping up the new characters of Rey and Kylo and Finn and Rose and going on from there. And I wonder if the question I have is, do you think that Star Wars will pay a price for that? Do you think that Disney will pay a price for that moving forward with Star Wars? Or is the movies a completely different medium than comic books? Because Marvel paid a price for it last year with Comicsgate. They paid a price, and they're trying to get themselves out of that hole. And they've canceled titles. They've gone from 120 titles a month down to 80. They've fired their editor-in-chief. And you got to wonder now, is there going to be a price to pay with Star Wars? From a financial standpoint, it doesn't look that way, but, you know, I'll have to wait and see. Spike says, I think they did the second week and moving forward in terms of paying a price. And I think Spike is referring to the big, I think it was a 69 or 59% box office drop in the second week of Star Wars, which in box office, in box office logistics, apparently is a very bad thing. You want to minimize that second week drop off. And so that's probably true. One thing about Last Jedi, of course, when you make 400 million in your first opening weekend or whatever it was, you probably don't, you know, even a 59% drop is not necessarily going to be the end of it, but it's still very much behind it's very much behind Force Awakens. It's behind where Force Awakens was at the same time when Force Awakens first came out in December of last year. Yes, Nova Sama, it's going to make a ton of money anyway. And they made a lot of decisions that didn't line up with my expectations in Ragnarok. He says, same for The Last Jedi. Spike says, it's the worst of all Star Wars drop-offs and even worse than the Batman v Superman, and that was devastating. Yes, all true. I guess, you know, it's one of those things where how do you manage fan expectations is what it comes down to. And I think my answer to that, and I think I can't speak for you guys, but I think maybe I can because I hung out a little bit with you guys. I think one way to manage expectations when you have something like Last Jedi and even a comic books, like an entire Marvel comic book franchise, is you manage it by respecting legacy. Don't shit on what you know is successful already. It's very odd that Disney with Star Wars thought that they had mined all that they could mine out of Luke and Han and Leia, that they needed to just discard them in the manners in which they have. You don't have to do that. You can create legacy. You can still have the Force apply to everybody and still have a powerful Skywalker lineage. Why can't you have both? Why would you want to shit on one to prop up the other when you can have both? It's just ridiculous. You can satisfy both crowds. And I reference again, Standpoint gave a great, he referenced this YouTube video that talked about 12 different tweaks to the plot of Last Jedi that could have propped up the old classic characters, could have propped up Luke Skywalker, and at the same time given Rey more of a hero's journey as opposed to the Mary Sue journey that she clearly ends up on. I've got one other comment here. I was going to say, the Incredible Hulk, the Return to Planet Hulk, the legacy thing. One thing about Greg Pak, I just want to say, I just a couple of comments about him. I really like his. He's a great writer. He's a great character writer. He wrote action comics for a while when he was at DC, and he did some of the best Clark Kent focused stories that I've ever read. It was really good. He's actually the only writer I've ever known to make Lana Lang interesting, because Lana Lang is not interesting. I've never found her interesting. And in fact, I don't even find her interesting as Superwoman. I stopped collecting Superwoman, which is one of only 3 DC titles that I don't collect, ironically enough. But I like what he's doing with the Return to Planet Hulk. I don't think it's necessarily particularly original, but I'm really curious to know if he's going to be returning, if David Banner's going to be returning at the end of this, or what's going to be happening. But this is something that no one is talking about this. No one is talking about the story, and I can understand why. Because as I said, it's nothing new. It's been there, done that. It's nothing new. And there's definitely a sense that, you know, when he comes back, what's he going to be when he comes back? What's going to be the storyline after that? I think Marvel's really going to want to shake things up, and it's going to be interesting to see where David Banner fits into this entire new Planet Hulk thing. But in any event, um, Spike says. Nova Sam says, not a fan of the Hulk, even less of a fan of Chow, and I believe you mean Amadeus Chow, who is the present Hulk. I will say this about Amadeus Chow. I think that the problem that Marvel has with they did an about shift on Amadeus Chow, because what they did in the Generation storyline one shot for the Hulk, Amadeus Chow has always been this guy who loves being the Hulk. He'd always loved being the Hulk. He was sort of the total opposite of David Banner. He was the Hulk that always seemed to be smiling and smart and cocky and narcissistic, and he had his traits that could be considered flaws, but that's what made him interesting, frankly. He was sort of like the happier Hulk. Then they did an about face, and it's like they want to try to make him into David Banner. Why would you do that, Marvel? David Banner's David Banner. Why make Amadeus Chow, basically be afraid of the Hulk like David Banner is? If Amadeus Chow has a healthier relationship with his darker side than David Banner does, why don't you go with that? That's a unique take on a character too. Somebody that has a more of a healthier respect for his darker side than David Banner, who's always conflicted with it, who can't seem to control it. Explore those differences. But Marvel is clearly, it looks like, trying to make them the same. He's now a reflection of David Banner, which I thought was, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying, again, it's trying to, it reinforces the idea that they're trying to replace Banner with the new character, as opposed to highlighting the differences. Spike says, I think that executive producer culture trumping experienced creative talent is really hurting Disney. I think let me think about that. Executive producer culture trumping experienced creative talent is really hurting Disney. I think that's an interesting point. I'd be curious to know, Spike, and also Nova Sama, what your opinion would be on Warner Brothers letting Jeff Johns go. I mean, they didn't fire him, but Jeff Johns is now no longer the head following Justice League. He's no longer the head of the movies. Jeff Johns is gonna have some input, but they're gonna be replacing Jeff Johns. Clearly, Warner Brothers thinks that Jeff Johns is no Kevin Feige, and I think, unfortunately, I think that's very true. I've always Jeff Johns' strength is comic books. For whatever reason, Jeff Johns doesn't seem to really have that ability to reel in and to I think Jeff Johns maybe needs to be a little bit more of a dictator. Nova Sama asks, was he really the head to begin with, though? Was Jeff Johns really the head of the movie department for Warner Brothers? I don't think so. I know that he was the chief creative officer, but of the comics division. But Spike just says Jeff was brought in too late. But Jeff Johns was given a lot of power. He was touted to be the next Kevin Feige, and he was given a lot of power. And there's been some dispute on this, but I watched a number of other YouTube videos on this, and apparently Jeff Johns was given. He had a lot of. He had final say on Justice League. Jeff Johns. He had a lot of power. Or at least he had a lot of input on Justice League. And so with the outcome of Justice League being what it was, I think there's maybe only so much you can do. Spike makes the comment that up to date these have been mostly Snyder films, and that is true. And it certainly didn't help that Snyder wasn't able to complete his vision, and he wasn't given the support. And even if he was given the support, do people really want Snyder films in light of what has proven to be successful on the Marvel side of things? I like the Snyder films. I like BV. I really enjoyed Batman v Superman. I would have liked to have seen a Snyder cut of Justice League. But it is true that, but you know what a lot of people seem to forget is Jeff Johns did have a lot of say in one film, and that was Green Lantern. Nova says give him full control of Warner Brothers, and they'd be happy. Well, maybe, but I always remember that Jeff Johns had a lot of input on Green Lantern, and really have faith. I really have faith in Wonder Woman and Johns Jenkins putting Get Out on the forefront. Spike, I agree totally. They need to ride that wave of Wonder Woman and take it full tilt. Whatever they did there worked, and I think Johns, whatever that team up, that combination of Johns and Jenkins really works very well, and I think it was the freedom that they gave Jenkins, and Jenkins clearly got along well with Johns. They were able to craft a movie that worked, and frankly, with Snyder coming in, he already had his own vision. Then he had his daughter, the unfortunate death of his daughter that took him out of it. And then with Joss Whedon coming on board, and then having the voice of Jeff Johns. I mean, the fact of the matter is that Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon are very different writers. I mean, I like Joss Whedon. I love his comic book writing. Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon have they've got similar tastes and similar, some of their style is similar in their writing, I find, but I actually find Joss Whedon to be a better comic book writer than Jeff Johns when he puts his mind to it. But I think that there's still too many chiefs. There's maybe too many chefs in the kitchen, so to speak, and they need more of a unified voice. I agree with you, Spike, that we should definitely focus on the Wonder Woman. Go with what works. Whatever the Jenkins-John combination is, it seems to be working well. Spike says, I've never experienced anything by Whedon I didn't like. Fair enough. Avengers is my second favorite superhero movie of all time. I should actually say Superman the movie is my nostalgic first, followed by Winter Soldier, followed by Avengers. And I loved Avengers Age of Ultron too. I think Whedon worked himself to death on that, and I think it went well. But Nova Sama says Green Lantern had potential. It was way too generic though. I agree. I think it was also too long, and I also think that they made a huge strategic error with Green Lantern. My personal opinion is I didn't like the villain. They did the same mistake that Fantastic Four did with Galactus, having that puke giant diarrhea cloud for Parallax. That was a horrible choice. I think that Sinestro should have been the villain immediately in Green Lantern. It shouldn't have been Parallax. I think the mistake they made was using Jeff Johns' rebirth story, Green Lantern rebirth story, which I just don't like Green Lantern's rebirth story, Jeff Johns. I think it's one of the most uninteresting rebirth that Jeff Johns did. I'm not a fan of Hector Hammond, never will be. He looks ridiculous. He's got that big head. He's like the MODOK of the DC universe. He looks ridiculous. You don't want to have a ridiculous looking villain for your first time out. Spike corrects me, says Johns did the script, but he wasn't full on a producer for for Green Lantern. The guy who played Sinestro was perfectly cast too. Nova Sama says yes. That's true. I forget the Sinestro's name, but that's right. He did excellent. I would love to see a sequel to Green Lantern. I would love to see a battle between Sinestro and Hal Jordan. Unfortunately, Ryan Reynolds now, he's got ridiculous success as Deadpool. Why would he ever want to come back to do Green Lantern? But let's have let's get a Jon Stewart in there. Let's get a cool African American. Let's get Idris Elba in there. Let's get a cool black character in there to kick some ass. I think that would be awesome. And then have Kendra of Hawkgirl in there as well. I don't know, rock the world. Rock it up. There's that scene at the beginning of Justice League, that flashback scene where they show the Green Lantern getting killed and the ring flying off when the bad guy I forget the villain's name in Justice League, but that was awesome. Yeah. I'm experiencing this live thing for the first time. Your comments show up on the screen I'm looking at, which is extremely helpful. I didn't realize that before because I was always looking down. So, in any event, there was. I just want to give a shout out to one other thing here that I picked up because I got them all I got a hell of a deal for them. I want to give full credit to Ed Brisson. Ed Brisson on Iron Fist. I picked up his back issues here. I just want to show them. I mean, the art here is just fantastic. The cover art's great. The Sabretooth storyline is great. That's probably one of the for me, this is one of my best covers of 2017. I never did a best cover list, my top 10 covers for 2017. But if I did, this would be up there for sure, probably in my top 5. I just love that. This is actually way better than the lithographic, than the lenticular cover that came out, which started off the Iron Fist Legacy. But yeah, I picked up the back issues. One of the great things about Iron Fist is nobody was talking about it, but people are starting to talk about it now. And Ed Brisson is actually my choice for. I want him to actually write Iron Man. But I wonder if Donny Cates is going to be writing Iron Man instead. I'm not sure who's going to be writing Iron Man. I personally hope it's Ed Brisson, but we'll have to wait and see. But just really, I mean, the covers alone are really good. Is the art, Nova Sama asks, is the art inside the same? Well, the same artist Perkins has been, the covers have been by, the cover artist has been Jeff Deckel, and the artist inside has been Mike Perkins. But make no mistake, Mike Perkins' art is really, really good. It's really good. Just to give you a taste of it here. It's really good stuff. You're not going to be disappointed. Well, I know if you guys are a lot like me in that when it comes to a martial arts comic, there's nothing that kills a martial arts comic faster than a bad artist. You need an artist that is able to draw those martial arts moves. Not every artist can do that. But this Mike Perkins is really pulling it off. I'll go to issue 1. Just give you an example. And issue 1, again, just it's really good art. It's kind of darker toned. It's but there's definitely a lot of action. It's decent art. And it's got really good storyline. Here's a sequence there. You can get an idea of what I'm talking about. You really see that they can. Mike Perkins can really draw. He can draw a fight scene, and you get a sense of the visceral. You can feel the blows. You can get a good sense of it, and so it's well worth checking out. Spike says it reminds you of the interior work of Salvador La Roca. Yeah, that's a good comparison. Nathan asks, what's the series been about? I've been reading Street Fighter. Well, basically the series has been... I guess you want me to... I don't know if I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's really picked up. I actually thought the early issues give a little bit of background. My favorite Iron Fist run was by Matt Faction, and I got that hardcover. That's really great. This one is him getting back in the groove again. He's fighting to the death again. The first opening issue was a little bit cliche. It was almost had that feel of like a bad action flick, but it drastically improved after that. And Ed Brisson really found his way. And now with Sabretooth, he's really humanizing Sabretooth. Sabretooth, because you think, this was the Legacy issue. You might have thought, when this first came out, I thought, this is just a cheap way of getting Sabretooth into Iron Fist. But in actual fact, what it was this is actually a great character comic, because you learn a lot about Sabretooth. And Sabretooth shows a lot of his humanity in Sabretooth Round 2. That's the name of the story arc. It's Sabretooth Round 2 is the name of the entire arc. And they end up embroiled in some characters from Sabretooth's past. And Sabretooth actually goes through some character development here in terms of he actually to a point where he exercises compassion on an enemy, where one of the enemies ends up being the son of one of his old friends, the son, offspring of one of his old friends, is actually ends up being his enemy. But when he finds that out, he exercises compassion and chooses to help him instead. Which, again, that's just, I don't want to tell you the story. Anyways, I enjoy it. It's only getting better. It's only getting better. I would suggest pick it up. If you don't need to pick up the earlier issues, if you're waiting for the trade, wait on Comixology. You'll probably get it for $3, $2.50 Canadian, $3 or whatever, $1.80 American. Wait 4 or 5 months. You'll get the first 6 issues of the Legacy anyway for cheap on Comixology. Check it out. It's well worth it. I want to make a comment on Spider-Man 2. This is something where I've been reading. Who is Miles Morales in the 6? No problem, Nathan. You say the Netflix series did the reverse for you in terms of making. Yeah, the Netflix series Iron Fist. Obviously, I take it you never liked the series Iron Fist. I actually, ironically enough, I actually enjoyed the Netflix Iron Fist series. My wife and I both, we started watching it and we quite enjoyed it. Now, having said that, I admit that the fight scenes, we made fun of the fight scenes. We did. The fight scenes could have been better with Iron Fist. They should have been better. But he got a little bit better in fighting, I think, on the Defenders show. But the Defenders show was a terrible plot. It was a really terrible plot. It was very disappointing. Overall, I thought all the series, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, all those Netflix series, I thought they actually blended in quite well. I just wish the Defenders made better use of all that story potential, because it ended up being a far less interesting story than the Defenders could have been. Getting back quick to Spider-Man 2, who is Miles Morales in the 616 universe? Because at the end of Secret Wars, Miles Morales, who is the Ultimate Spider-Man, ends up in the 616 universe. But then the question is asked, well, who is actually Miles Morales in the 616 universe before Miles from the Ultimate Universe came over? And it's revealed that this is actually someone who used to work for the Kingpin. The Miles Morales of the 616 universe is someone who used to work for the Kingpin and was actually very much a good friend of the Kingpin's. And very interesting take. Now, Bendis, of course, this is Bendis's baby again. Before he takes off, I'm sure he's already completed writing it. His last big event, his last issue at Marvel is going to be, I believe, Iron Man issue 600. But in the meantime, it looks like Miles Morales has sort of thrown the mask away. So what does Marvel have planned for Miles Morales? I've got no idea. But boy, oh boy, oh boy, they went from one extreme in 2000. Marvel went from one extreme in 2017 to embracing diversity, and here they are. Very much, the pendulum is definitely shifting that way now, and you got to wonder if they're going to go overkill. They focus too much on their diverse characters to the exclusion of classic. I wonder now if they're going to focus too much on classic to the exclusion of diversity. I mean, I think there is a comfortable middle ground there, but it's going to be interesting to see what CB does, how he's going to do that delicate balancing act. Spike is teasing. He says he works on Bendis' Spider-Man and then he knows what happens. Obviously Spike has got to be... Spike, I know you have to keep secrets. I hope, of all the diversity in the Marvel Universe, Miles Morales is one of my favorites, so I hope that he sticks around in Marvel Universe in some fashion. He deserves it. I'm even looking forward to his movie. That animated computer graphic crazy movie looks pretty cool that I saw that preview. That I can't wait till that comes out. That looks like it should be quite the thing to watch. Now, there is one other thing. Just one other comment. If there was a reward for the the what I think is the dumbest idea of 2017 that Marvel had. It was the weapons of mass destruction, specifically the making an Incredible Hulk with claws. It's like, so they pay Marvel executives the big bucks to sit in a room and come up with ideas for characters, and then they think to themselves, "Oh, no one's buying Hulk, no one's buying Wolverine, or somebody's buying Hulk. We've got so many Hulks, we've got so many Wolverines, so let's combine Hulk and Wolverine," and that's what they do. And it just seems, well, I don't know. I think it's a little bit uninspired, but we'll have to see what they do with it. It's just, I mean, God, it's just one thing after another. Spike says, Novarama, just for those interested, Spike has his own channel. Spike Valentine, check out Spike. He's on YouTube. He always has great insights. Take the time to watch some of his videos. Nova Sama, I apologize. I don't know if you have or Nathan Herrera. I don't know if you've got a Spike to the if you've got a YouTube channel, but check out those guys as well. Shout out to you guys. Thanks for showing up. This for my first live chat. I'm just shooting the shit. I appreciate it. Spike says. Spike indicates that he's Spike has done some written work, and he's a freelance script interpreter for the penciler Oscar Belzoldua, who is, I believe, that's the, is that for Spider-Man 2? I'm not sure, but, well, in any event, Spike says about Miles Morales, he says, Miles will stay because there's an exclusive deal with Oscar, and Marvel is interested in keeping the book. So that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Because if there's one character that successfully represents diversity and all its potential, it's Miles Morales, Spider-Man. Which, interestingly enough, I always found it that rumor that Miles that apparently Brian Bendis fought for the right to have Spider-Man be called the Miles Morales book. That he didn't want it to be called Miles Morales Spider-Man. He just wanted it to be called Spider-Man. And it looks like Marvel backtracked on that, because I think they've taken that away, and it's going to be Miles Morales Spider-Man, or I think they're changing the title back to Miles Morales Spider-Man, so to distinguish it from Peter Parker Spider-Man. And so basically the name Spider-Man is going to be the white character, and any other Spider-Man is going to have a different moniker attached to it. At least that seems to be the implication there. And well, I'm sure that ruffled some feathers, and my understanding is that it ruffles Brian Bendis' feathers at some point too. You got to wonder with that, and between some other things at Marvel, were there some other things at Marvel that bothered Brian Bendis, that he's leaving, that had more to do with him than just simply exploring his creative juices at DC. It's you always got to wonder. I would love to be a fly on the wall behind the scenes at some of this stuff, because comic book gossip is fun. I mean, we can say all we want about Bleeding Cool, but hey, it's enjoyable sometimes just to read the gossip, right? Well, thank you. Nathan says you have some good insight on the comics, read and miss. Thank you, Nathan. And yeah, you're going back to the drawing board. Yeah. Well, guys, I'm just going to. I think I'm gonna end it here. I've got more I can talk about. I just wanted to experiment with the live stream here to see how things were going. Thank you, Nova Sama, Spike. Thanks. Happy New Year, guys. And yeah. I guess I'm out of here. So Comic Boom out.